Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we are back in ranked, this time the derpitz. Great tier 8 battleship. She's been around for a while, been a favorite of the person playing this game, Seveah, for a long time, and something the derpitz brings that many of the other battleships, well, with the exception of the key, it's torpedoes. And they allow you to do some things that maybe a battleship shouldn't, and in ranked 7 on 7, when you get into a close situation with another battleship, you're left with an option other than ram. And it actually kind of forces other battleships to try to ram you sometimes if they get too close. Now, playing on Trident, this map is not new. Pretty much everyone, I'd say, has figured out more or less how this map works. You pick one of the caps and you sail towards it. Try to do it as a team. If you had 2 destroyers, potentially send one to the other cap, but Trident really is a map. It doesn't matter which cap you choose, you really need to be in a bulk group. Spreading out on this, I have always found to be unsuccessful. And, well, they all sail there. I'm going to cover a couple of the tips and tricks and just some general advice for those of you in ranked. And the first major piece of advice I give anyone is don't be greedy. I was in a game the other night and it started to go awry. Luckily we won it, but some players were like, how is this happening? And it was just consecutive. We had one player after another just decide, I'm going to get greedy. You could see it in the way they were playing. We had a 3-ship lead. We still had all our ships left. They were down 3 of theirs, and we had both caps. And that's a pretty sweet place to be in, especially early into a battle. But rather than fall back and be patient, because 20 minutes is a long time, let the battle play out, let the enemy come to you, we had a battleship decide, no, I'm sailing at the enemy, I want damage. And he sailed pretty much straight out of a smoke into the 4 remaining enemy ships solo. And the only thing I can justify that with is he got greedy. A great hit there from Seveah, landing a citadel on that Prince Eugen. And if you can just afford to not do that, play as a team, things will go a little better. The second big one, and I kind of said it in there, is patience. Let the battle come to you. Don't go searching, don't go chasing for damage or a kill or the enemy fleet. They will turn and eventually sail your way. If you have the position of power, i.e. if you're up on points and have 1 cap, or half the caps, you don't need to go out and get a bunch more. Now obviously, if the opportunity presents itself, say the entire enemy team is spotted and they're nowhere near another cap, particularly in those 3 cap ones like Mountain Range, yeah, if you're a DD and you can get in there, sure, take it, it helps your team, but don't think that, okay, we've got our cap, it's time to push into theirs. Ships, tanks, most instruments of war are far more effective in a defensive position when they're not having tried to advance into the enemy. You can dig in, you make yourself stronger, you pick where you are when you're sitting still. When you're moving, you're forced to sail across the open. And a great example of this would be the Sherman tank. There's always kind of this myth that the Germans were so much better, that their tanks were just that much better, but the reality was the Allies were a victim of their own success. They were always having to push into defended German positions, and most tanks got taken out by just emplaced guns or little 88s that were operated by a couple people. It wasn't big tank-on-tank warfare, and some of ships were like that too. There were a number of ships during the war lost to sea mines because they had to try to push into somewhere, and it was an easy way to protect an inlet, a harbor, was to just lay tons of sea mines across it, and short of sending a mine clearer through, you might not even know they're there. Interestingly, in kind of the Middle East area that we operate, one of the big threats there is kind of floating mines that have become unmoored or were intentionally just designed to float on the surface. and harass or provide damage. They were coming across them all the time, and that presents a big threat. And that, I know, is a bit rambly, but long story short, do not push unless you need to. Right now, Seveah's team, they're behind. But they're not so behind that they need to panic. The only reason there's a point differential is they lost one of their cruisers. You can see the majority of his team here, they're sitting back. They're kind of contained in their own cap, letting these ships come to them. And if you watch this enemy team, they're streaming out one at a time. Bismarck, Tirpitz, Eugen. They're not a balled up group, and that makes them vulnerable. Now, Seveah is definitely doing his job as a battleship here. He has sailed out, tanked, decided to switch targets and start working on this Eugen. And it's not a bad plan because them torps can hurt. And she's a very seemingly thinly armored cruiser. I know when I play her, or the Hindenburg, the Hipper, I feel like everything's a Citadel. I'd say Seveah's doing the right thing here. He saw that Prince Eugen getting closer. He turned out, he came up in speed, and he was GTFing. And it worked. He just dodged those torps, and with the rear guns, fires at the Hipper. The bonus to coming around like this is, well, now his other set of torps is facing the enemy. And this Bismarck is almost done, so you saw him consider it there for a second, but between the secondaries and friendly fire, well, he wasn't long for the world. Time to get rid of another ship. The secondary's doing it, picking up a double strike even. And, well, next ship, Tirpitz. And kind of the third point I'm going to go into now is share your hit points. Seveah's been taking a beating for a while. It's his turn to cycle to the back of the line. Someone else should be moving up. When you're in a ball, when you're attacking like that, switch who is being presented as a target if you can. Now I get that that is really hard to do without any kind of comms, but you can try to do it. If you see, say you were this North Carolina, if you see Seveah taking a beating, he's trying to get back, come up in speed. Become the closest thing to the enemies, let them shoot you for a while. Little plays like that go a long way because as a battleship, given enough time to run through all these repair parties, Seveah is going to have a lot of hit points again. He was getting seriously low, but already one heal in, he's back up to nearly, I'd say, well, it's about 1/3 HP, a little over it. But the next one will take him well over half, and that just takes time. Now, when you are healing, try not to take yourself out of the battle, but at the same time, don't overexpose. And Seveah's just looking for shots. Got the Alabama there, decently side on. Unfortunately, missed, but he's safe. That's what matters. He is detected. The Benson's somewhere, there's no surprise. And just based on when he became undetected and redetected, I'm honestly not sure where that Benson is. He was last detected in the south, so I'd be inclined to say he's actually sailing over here somewhere. But that's a tricky one to guess. He did go dark for a split second before the Chapayev came into view, so I think the Benson's trying to sneak around, get in the back of B. And well, this Chapayev shouldn't last too much longer. Secondary's firing. Shame he doesn't get the guns reloaded in time, but well, he's no longer presenting himself to Seveah. He's definitely going to be presenting himself to that North Carolina, and that should end the Chapayev's game. And the second the enemy radar cruisers are gone, that really opens up the game for your destroyers. In this case, the Kagero. Once that Chapayev's gone, the Kagero can get into A. If those battleships try to come in, well, that's a pretty easy job of just throwing torps straight at them. They've got to turn away. Picks up the high caliber there, up to 116,000 damage. Still sitting on that pair of kills he got. And, well, they're going to sit side onto you. Just keep shooting. Eventually, RNG will bless you with a better grouping. That one looking a lot better. And you'll notice Seveah doing something. When he's fired, he's not watching the shells go in. He's looking about, looking at the other ships, what they're doing. It's important to stay aware of that because you can very easily tunnel vision. And, well, he aimed for that critical toilet paper compartment. Unfortunately, he missed. And the rear ones did too. It can be funny how stationary target, battleship at 10 kilometers, and just having no luck hitting them. Yet, landed a citadel on one of them from almost double that distance, so go figure with RNG sometimes. But it looks like the necessary sheep have been sacrificed. Those last couple shots, a lot better. Going where he was actually aiming. And this Alabama, she's done for. And Seveah, I'd almost say has to be careful here, but he really doesn't. You want to watch out for the ram, but with the torpedoes, it's not an option. And the only reason I say that is Seveah lost both his racks of torps there when he kind of sailed out and took the beating for the team. And just speaking of hit points, given the time, he's now back up to over 43,000 hit points, picks up his Confederate, and not a lot the enemy team can do here. They're doing the right thing. Well, they're trying to. The Benson is. You can't give up the caps in late game, especially a situation like this with 4 ships. You need to get a kill. So honestly, I feel that Benson should be in here trying to torp after he gets a cap. Unfortunately, I don't know that he's going to survive or get here soon enough because for one reason or another, and this I do question of you, Seveah, you shouldn't have left the cap. And this is a little bit of that greed creeping in, I think. He wants to get the ram, he wants the damage, and he leaves the cap, and it's going to let the enemies close the point a little bit. He may have noticed that the friendly derpitz was in there. The Qckslvrslash almost more than likely to turn around and go get it after launching these torps. So you can kind of forgive it, but it's just little plays like that that can hurt you in the long run. This battle's pretty much over. But if it were an even fight there, you need to stay in. Even if they're shooting at you, it just takes a few ticks off and buys your team that extra time. As far as time goes, this Alabama's has come about to an end. It's going to be one of these volleys here to do it. Secondary is starting to fire, and well, it's going to be the main guns that get it. Third kill up to 168,000 damage, and at this point, if you're the Benson, all you can try to do is preserve your star. It's something a lot of people are kind of sour about, the idea of that, and you shouldn't start a battle going, how am I going to keep my star? But at the end of the game, if you're the one guy left, don't YOLO in and just die. Like, you're allowed to try to do the best you can do. You're allowed to try to get damage, and don't get mad at your ships for doing that. I've had a couple people yell at me in chat to just die already. And I mean, part of this is topping your team, and granted, sometimes the person who's the last alive really doesn't deserve to be the top of the team because they're alive because they just refuse to engage, but it wasn't really the case with this Benson, and he's trying. He threw his torps at that North Carolina and is doing his best to just engage and, you know, get some more damage, but also potentially try to get a kill. And sometimes in these situations, luck is all it takes. I had one on this exact map, and I kind of just kept blindly throwing torpedoes, and 2 enemy ships sailed straight into them, leaving only the enemy destroyer, and we were up on point, so we just played ring around the rosy with the caps. So it's never truly over until the last ship sinks or the time runs out, and in this one, that's going to be the case. Those cap points slowly ticking up, taking away vital time that Benson needs, and really he needs to kill the Qckslvrslash. That's his only chance here. You can see he's shooting. The Kagero shot at one point and became spotted. That's just another instance of getting a little greedy. There's no real reason to shoot at the Benson when you're the destroyer on low health. And, you know, if they died, there's one less ship to help defend. And then suddenly maybe some torpedoes hit the North Carolina, and you can see how it cascades. And well, with this game winding down, my final tip, if you lose 2 in a row, just step away. I cannot advise that strongly enough. You can't play your way through a losing streak. If something's not working, take 30 minutes, take a breath, and then come back. Now once again, Seveah got the result he wanted. He got that star, but it was also a great game for him. 492,000 credits, Confederate, double strike, close quarters expert, high caliber, 168,000 damage, 3 kills, and he did his job. There's always a risk to pushing into the ships like that, because if you don't get the support from your teammates and enemy ships don't start disappearing, you can find yourself out of health a lot. And that's where it was important to play as a team. And if you see someone making that move and you're all right there, support them and just start eating ships one after another. As far as experience, top of the team, just over 2,000, and that's kind of what you expect when you kind of get those damage numbers and kills. And when you look at the damage, there was a good chunk of it, and some of it was early. Those early shots at just broadside ships trying to get to their cap. And, you know, like that Eugen, it hurt him, and took maybe a third to a quarter of his health in the first opening minute just because he got momentarily spotted. As far as money, well, it is a premium tier 8, so 415,000 credits, just shy of 5,000 XP to take home, and as always, the star. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope you can take away some of those tips and apply them to ranked. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you all later.